the mountain that bleeds every 1,000 years. Deep in the heart of the ancient land of Eldermere stood a mountain unlike any other. Its name was Grimspire, and it was known across the world for one strange and terrifying secret. Every 1,000 years the mountain would bleed. No one knew why it happened. No one knew where the blood came from. But every 1,000 years, without fail, the rocks would darken, and thick red liquid would seep from the cracks, rolling down the slopes like tears. The people of Eldermere called it the weeping time, and though they feared it, they also respected it. For as long as their oldest stories could remember, the mountain had bled, and yet the land remained. The last weeping time had been so long ago that no living person had seen it. The tales had been passed down through generations. Stories of how the rivers ran red, how the animals fled, and how the earth itself seemed to tremble as if in pain. Some believed the mountain was alive. Others said it was a curse. But one thing was certain: when Grimspire bled, something changed in the world. As the 1,000-year mark drew near, the village at the foot of the mountain prepared. The elders spoke in hushed tones. The children listened with wide eyes, and the bravest among them made plans to climb Grimspire when the time came. Among them was a young woman named Liora. She was not the strongest or the fastest, but she had a sharp mind and a fearless heart. Liora had spent years studying the old scrolls, searching for answers about the mountain. She believed that the bleeding was not a curse, but a message, one that had been ignored for too long. "What if the mountain is trying to tell us something?" she asked the elders. But they only shook their heads. "Some things are not meant to be understood," they said. But Liora refused to let fear stop her. When the first dark stains appeared on the rocks, she gathered her supplies and set out. The climb was treacherous, the stones slick with the strange red liquid. The higher she went, the stronger the scent of iron filled the air, thick and metallic, like real blood. Her hands trembled, but she pressed on. At last she reached the summit. There, she found something no story had ever mentioned, a great gaping wound in the rock, weeping steadily. And inside that wound, buried deep, was a massive, beating heart. Liora staggered back in shock. The legends were true. The mountain was alive. But as she looked closer, she saw something else. The heart was weak, its rhythm slow and uneven. Around it, the stone was cracked and crumbling. The mountain wasn't just bleeding, it was dying. She knelt beside the heart and placed her hand on it. At once, images flashed through her mind. Ancient forests, vast oceans, skies filled with birds. She saw the land as it had been, wild and untouched. Then she saw the people, cutting, burning, taking without thought. The mountain had given them everything, and in return they had forgotten it. The bleeding was not a curse. It was a cry for help. Liora knew what she had to do. She returned to the village and told the elders what she had seen. At first they refused to believe her. But as the rivers ran redder and the earth shook beneath their feet, they had no choice but to listen. Together, the people of Eldermere changed. They planted trees where they had cut them down. They cleaned the rivers they had polluted. They gave back to the land that had given them so much. And slowly the bleeding stopped. The heart of the mountain grew stronger, and the cracks in the stone began to heal. When the next 1,000 years came, Grimspire did not weep. Instead, flowers bloomed from its slopes, and clear water ran from its peaks. The people knew then that the mountain was no longer in pain. It was grateful. And so, the legend changed. No longer was it the mountain that bleeds. It became the mountain that heals, a reminder that the earth is alive, and it listens when we care for it. Liora grew old, but her story did not end. She became the first keeper of Grimspire, and her descendants kept the promise she had made, to stand guard over the mountain, to protect it as it had protected them. And if you listen very closely on quiet nights, when the wind blows just right, some say you can still hear the heartbeat of the mountain, steady, strong, and at peace. For as long as the people remembered, the mountain would remember them in return. And that is how the world was saved. Not by magic, not by force, but by a single act of kindness. The end.